everyone, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I want to talk about insurance, something I haven't really discussed in great detail on my channel before. And truthfully, it's because I've always been intimidated by the topic and I never really understood it that well. With my personal circumstances, I also didn't feel like I was in any position to talk about it because I wasn't even adequately covered myself. But I want to share my journey in the hopes that it can help you on yours. You probably won't have the exact same circumstances as me, but I hope that by explaining my thought process, you can understand my approach to insurance and then maybe also apply it to your own life. This is everything that I'll be discussing in this video, and I'll timestamp all the sections in the description below. It's a long video ahead, so let's get started. It's not a Lisa's Adulting in Singapore video if it doesn't have a long preamble where I always try to over-explain and give too much context. But for something like insurance, context is necessary. I always say this in my money and budgeting videos, and it applies here as well. So let's start with my background. I'm currently 28 years old. I'm Singaporean. I started working full-time after graduating in 2020, so I've been working for almost 5 years now. My immediate family consists of my mother and my younger brother. My mother is 57 years old. She is not Singaporean or a PR, and she's not working. So technically, she's my dependent and probably will be for the rest of her life. My younger brother is currently in university. He's quite self-sufficient. I don't really support him financially, and he's mostly self-financing his expenses and education on his own. I'm assuming he'll be working after he graduates, so he'll be even more self-sufficient then. Since we're talking about health insurance, I should also mention my health history because every insurer will ask this question. Here's the thing. In 2020, during the pandemic, I was hospitalized and diagnosed with major depressive disorder, basically a mental illness. I've been formally discharged in March 2022, 2 years after my first diagnosis. However, it's still permanently on my record, and it does have a significant impact on whether I can get covered by some policies or not. I'll explain more later, but that's basically a summary of my personal and family background. Next, let's talk about my financial background, more specifically the financial concerns I have that I believe can be addressed with insurance. Basically, my financial concerns revolve around two main things. As the current sole income earner of my family, I'm worried for their financial stability in the event that, number one, I pass away prematurely, or number two, if I were to get a critical illness or disability that prevents me from working and incurs extra costs for them to care for me. As for my liabilities, I only have one major loan, which is my home loan. I own a 2-room HDB under my name, which is the primary residence for myself and my mother. I'm still paying the mortgage for it, so technically that would be a liability. But the good news is because my home loan is with HDB, I'm covered under the home protection scheme, which means that if I were to pass away before I pay off my home loan, CPF will fully pay off my outstanding mortgage for me. So while it will be very sad that I won't be around, it's a huge relief to know that at least the house is secured for my family. But then of course there's the issue of my mother's daily expenses as well as future long-term care expenses as she gets older. I did consider that the most likely situation will probably be my brother taking over after he graduates from uni. So in this hypothetical situation, we're assuming I'm already dead, so I'm neither contributing income nor expenses. But what if I'm not dead? What if I have cancer and I'm going through expensive treatment? What if I get into a serious accident? What if I'm permanently disabled in some way that requires long-term care? In all these situations, I'll be alive, but most likely I won't be able to work, which means no income but very high expenses. Of course, I have savings, but that won't last very long. My brother could take over, but I'll be jeopardizing his future if he's forced to work just to take care of my mother and I. And this is exactly where I think insurance is necessary, to cover these costs should they happen. Or as they say in insurance marketing jargon, to protect you from financial loss. So armed with all these fears and anxieties, I embarked on my journey to get my insurance coverage. But to be honest, when I started out 4 years ago, I didn't really know what I was doing. The fears that I had just talked about also weren't so clearly defined as they are now. Back then, I just heard that insurance was something that working adults should start thinking about, and so I asked around my friends for recommendations. Then in July 2020, I met my first financial advisor, who is a friend of a friend, and she's an agent under Prudential. I tried my best to do some reading beforehand, but I was still very clueless at the first meeting with my FA. And my FA was quite understanding and tried to explain it to me, but it was like in one ear, out the other. After the meeting, it felt like everything had already left my brain. And I think that's pretty normal, right? I doubt any regular person who has little to no interest in this kind of thing can easily grasp all these different terms, which is also the frustrating part. I feel like I understand insurance on this big picture level, like what it is, why I need it, and how it can fit into one's financial planning. But the actual process of getting covered, the nitty-gritty of each policy, what it covers, under what conditions does it cover, all the complicated jargon like accelerated and multiplier and advance, the differences between each insurer and their own take on each type of policy. I don't enjoy any of it, and I feel like it's overly complicated for reasons that I just don't get. And if you've ever gone through the process of meeting FAs or trying to figure out what your insurance needs are, you might relate to this. Let me know in the comments. But for me, during the process of getting insurance, I'm thinking about all these worst case scenarios, right? Like, what if I die prematurely? What if I get cancer? Do I have enough savings? Can I afford this premium? And all that. And dwelling on all this can't possibly be good for your mental state, right? Not to mention, if you ever want to raise your blood pressure and anxiety levels, you can try to read all the Reddit threads on people's opinions about insurance and agents in general, and you might come away feeling like you just want to give up on this whole endeavor. That was my feeling. Then on top of that, I also faced a lot of issues getting covered because I was just recently diagnosed with depression at that point, and so my initial applications for hospitalization and term life insurance was rejected. I eventually managed to get whole life insurance, but obviously it came with a mental disorder exclusion and also a TPD exclusion, and then loading on top of that, which means that my premiums are more expensive. Even after I got my formal discharge report in early 2022, Prudential rejected my appeal to have my loading removed. And that really sucked because getting that medical report cost me like $200. But at least now I have that report to wave around in front of other insurers to be like, I'm fine, I'm okay, please cover me.
I'm okay, I'm fine. Quinchana, ding, 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 ding.
So for a long time, I really kind of regretted getting diagnosed and getting any help at all because I felt like I had sabotaged myself and my financial future. So there was a lot of resentment towards myself, which obviously didn't make me feel any better. I know I'm painting quite a bleak picture so far, but I just wanted to be honest about my experience. Some of you might resonate with this, and maybe we can just commiserate together about how difficult this journey can be. But at the end of the day, I still want to keep trying. Being good at finances and taking care of my financial health has become something that I'm really passionate about and that I take pride in doing well. So recently, I've tried to get back on this journey again, and I'm going through an independent financial advisory company called Haven, and I've made a few more strides since then that I'll discuss later in the video. It has crossed my mind that if I were to die, touch wood, like in a freak accident or something, my family might actually be financially better off. The house would be fully paid off and they'll get a payout from my life insurance. But as much as I want my family to be financially secure, I also want to live happily till my old age. All this preparation and planning work that I'm doing is so that I can at least minimize the financial damage if I were to pass away suddenly. I might not be there to help them with the emotional damage, but I can try to reduce the financial impact. And that's currently where I stand on this topic. If you're interested in other videos where I've briefly talked about insurance, you can check out these ones. I share a lot more about how my thinking about insurance has changed over the years in my Money Mindsets video, and you can also see how insurance fits in my overall personal finance framework in my Personal Finance 101 video. With all of that said, I have come to a clearer understanding of what I need from insurance. This has been informed by the conversations I've had with the financial advisors I've spoken to over the years, as well as my own assessment of my situation. Much of what I'm sharing in this section has been influenced by this ebook that I read about insurance planning, written by Haven, the independent financial advisory that I mentioned earlier. After I read the ebook, I got a much clearer idea of what exactly insurance is and how to approach my insurance planning. The book is not overly technical, and trust me on that because I would not be able to read something too technical and dry. So I highly recommend it. It's a free ebook, by the way. I'll link it in the description below. With that, I've structured what I think my insurance needs are around Haven's framework, and what I'll share is an abridged version of their ideas. In their framework, Haven highlights these 5 core areas of risk. The first is life, which is kind of like a euphemistic misnomer because what it actually refers to is death. Second is occupational disability, which refers to disability that prevents you from doing your current occupation or your job. Third is long-term disability, which refers to a disability that is so severe that you're unable to perform daily activities of living, which is also typical of old age and decline. Fourth is critical illness, like cancer or stroke. Fifth is medical, which I think just refers to medical-related expenses. With each risk, there is a type of insurance policy that you can use to mitigate the financial cost of that risk. But just take note that even within each type, there are many different variants by different insurers. Earlier, I mentioned some concerns I had, that I'm worried about my family's financial stability in the event of 2 things. Firstly, if I pass away prematurely, and secondly, if I were to get really sick or disabled and cannot work. So having this framework is really useful because it helped me identify and pass out exactly how or in what way those financial concerns can manifest and how I can manage their risks through insurance. So for instance, the first situation or risk is I die prematurely and my mother and brother lose their sole income earner. Life insurance can provide that income replacement, the income that I would have been able to earn had I still been alive and working in order to support my family. In the second situation where I get sick or disabled and can't work, then I'll be looking at the other 4 areas of risk. Firstly, there's the risk of high medical costs. This can be addressed with hospitalization insurance. This might be the most crucial for a lot of us because it covers medical expenses and treatments that can be very expensive if we have to pay for all of it out of pocket. And it also covers the treatment for critical illnesses like cancer. Singaporeans and PRs also have MediShield Life, which is the basic health insurance plan administered by CPF. But it only covers up to B2 or C wards in public hospitals, and there are also claim limits on various treatments. So I would want to get additional private insurance coverage so that I have more treatment options. Then there is also the risk that I get a critical illness like cancer. While I'm undergoing treatment, I might want to have the flexibility to stop working so that I can focus on my recovery, which means I won't be earning an income. Similar to life insurance, critical illness insurance then comes in to help replace this income. The purpose of this plan is not directly for treatment costs because this is covered by your hospitalization plan, but you can also use your critical illness insurance for alternative treatments if your treatment is not covered under the cancer drug list. Another area of risk is that I might get a disability that prevents me from doing my current job. So for example, I'm currently working as a writer and something happens to me where I am semi-paralyzed in my arms, which prevents me from executing my job. This is separate from total permanent disability, where you're unable to do any job at all and you're dependent on help for even basic living activities. Disability insurance can provide up to 75% of my current monthly income, so even if I get an occupational disability, I can still manage my daily living expenses and support my family. Finally, there is the risk of long-term disability, which can also be caused by age-related decline. Some of this decline might result in needing a full-time caregiver or nursing home. CPF has the CareShield Life plan, which kicks in when you turn 30 years old, so I still have a couple years before this becomes relevant to me. Then I can supplement that with a private insurance plan to increase my payouts. So in summary, those are all the areas of financial concern that I can possibly address with insurance. Now that I've explained what my insurance needs are, let's see what my actual portfolio looks like. Spoiler alert, I don't have everything I need because of exclusions or budget constraints, so this is just what I'm working with for now. For life insurance, I have 3 policies and I'll go through and explain the rationale for each one. Firstly, I have the Dependents Protection Scheme, which is a nationwide term life insurance plan. All Singaporeans and PRs are automatically included from the moment they make their first CPF contribution. The premiums are super affordable at $18 a year paid through CPF. The maximum sum assured is $70,000, which is not a lot but better than nothing. It's at least 1 to 2 years of living expenses for me. So even if you have no insurance at all, chances are you still at least have P.P.S to cover your family in the event of your death, terminal illness, or total permanent disability. This is a plan that most of us will have by default, so it's good to just have this in the back of your mind. My next life insurance policy is a whole life plan under Prudential. This was the very first insurance policy that I bought after I started working. My death and critical illness benefit is $150K. My monthly premiums are $210.51, and my premium term is 30 years. So after 30 years, I will stop paying and I'll get lifetime coverage. But I think after I'm 65 years old, my coverage will drop to 30K and it'll be 30K for the rest of my life. Because of my pre-existing condition, I have a mental illness exclusion and also a total permanent disability exclusion. As I mentioned earlier, Prudential rejected my application for term life, but they did offer me whole life a few months later. Between term life and whole life, the main factor for me back then was the cost. Whole life policies are generally more expensive. So whole life was definitely not my first choice for this reason, but I just decided to take it first because I thought it was the only option available for me back then. I had also just gotten the keys to my new house and I was generally feeling quite anxious about my financial security. Besides the cost, there are other significant differences between term life and whole life. I'll put some resources in the description below. I might have to discuss the differences between the two in another video in the future. Let me know if you would find that helpful. My second life insurance plan is under Singlife. The official policy name is Singlife Elite Term 2. The monthly premium is $66.60 and the term of my policy is for 32 years until I am 60 years old. After that, the policy will end and the coverage also stops. I have $500K in death and total permanent disability benefit and $300K in critical illness benefit, which is an extra benefit tagged on to my life insurance plan. So while technically this is not a critical illness plan, there is still some coverage for it, similar to my whole life plan. But unlike my whole life plan, I don't have the TPD exclusion. I still have loading and also the mental illness exclusion, which is to be expected. So this plan I managed to get when I consulted with Haven. They were able to help me look at different insurers to see who would be willing to cover me with my pre-existing conditions. I'm definitely a lot more comfortable with this plan, mainly because the premiums are much lower, but with an even higher coverage. I don't need the lifetime coverage or the cash value of a whole life plan, so I'm very happy with just a term life plan. Next, I have a disability insurance plan with Singlife. The official policy name is Singlife Disability Income. The monthly premium is $59.35 and the term of my policy is for 32 years until I am 60 years old. The sum assured is $3,300 a month, which is 75% of my current monthly income. During my consultation with Haven, my insurance specialist suggested that I consider disability insurance given that I'm in my working phase towards financial independence. So in between now until I'm 60, if I get some sort of occupational disability, this plan can help plug that gap so that I can still hopefully be financially independent by then. So I thought the rationale was quite sound and it does address my concern of losing my ability to work and earn an income. The monthly premiums are also quite reasonable. As for hospitalization insurance, I only have MediShield Life for now. In summary, these are all the insurance plans I have. My intention is to surrender my whole life plan by the end of this year, once I pass the 3-month waiting period for critical illness claims. Hopefully, I won't be diagnosed with any serious conditions in the meantime. Even with both my term life insurance plan and the disability insurance plan combined, the total premiums are still cheaper than my whole life insurance plan. I know that whole life insurance does have its place and function, but personally I'm choosing to let go of it based on my own assessment of my budget, my needs and my concerns. It's not really about right or wrong, it's simply a value judgment that I've made for myself. As you have seen, I still have quite a bit of work left to do in terms of adequately covering myself. In my mind, I see it as a few more checkboxes to tick off before I feel like I've got all my bases covered. Here are the gaps that I've identified and what I'll be doing about it in the future. Definitely the first thing on the list would be to get hospitalization insurance. It's the most basic of health insurance and it will make a huge difference in terms of my healthcare options. I've been rejected many times from a couple insurers for a hospitalization plan. My Prudential FA told me that the underwriter mentioned waiting 5 years from my official date of discharge. I'll keep trying in the meantime, but I might have more luck in 3 years. My insurance specialist at Haven has also tried to apply for hospitalization plans under different insurers, but no luck so far. For now, I still have MediShield Life and I'll just do my best to stay as healthy as possible. The second thing to get is critical illness insurance, specifically their multi-pay version of this policy, also known as MPCI. I mentioned how my life insurance has the CI rider tagged on it, but it's not a perfect replacement for a CI plan. The benefits of a multi-pay CI plan is that you get payouts even for relapses, which is a real concern if you were already diagnosed with a critical illness the first time. I was offered one under Singlife, but the premiums were a bit high for my budget right now. The one I was offered was about $160 a month. I'll seriously consider it again, maybe once my income increases. Thirdly is long-term disability insurance, also known as long-term care insurance. This is something I'll think about once I'm 30 and when I'm enrolled in the CareShield Life scheme. I haven't looked into any supplementary plans to this yet. I'm just shelving this to think about it later. Finally, it's generally good to have annual-ish reviews with your financial advisor or even by yourself to reassess your financial situation and see if your coverage needs have changed. You might have gotten all your policies when you were just a single person with no liabilities or dependents, but your situation might have changed since then. Maybe you have more liabilities or more dependents. So even after I reach a point where I think I'm set in terms of insurance, I'll make an effort to do regular check-ins just to make sure that I stay on top of these things. I've mentioned them a lot throughout this video, but yes, this video is sponsored by Haven. Haven is an independent financial advisory whose philosophy towards financial planning and insurance is aligned pretty closely with my own. They pride themselves on their clear framework in approaching insurance planning, and that's something I really appreciate as well. I mentioned their ebook earlier, which clarified so many questions I had and made me feel like I can actually understand all this. I can tolerate opaqueness in many things, but not in personal finance, and so I appreciate any resource that tries to simplify and clarify things for everyone. Haven's promise is to always be transparent with you on whether or not you need any more insurance, and they will not try to sell you any insurance if they think you already have enough. I went for a free assessment with them a couple months back, which they call their Insure Well assessment. I got a lot from their ebook, but during the meeting, I could also ask any remaining questions I had about their framework and my specific circumstances. Since they're not affiliated with any one insurance company, you'd have more options for plans that can suit your needs. For instance, they were able to get a term life insurance for me under Singlife, even when other insurers had previously rejected my applications for it. If you need a second opinion on your insurance portfolio, you can reach out to the Haven team to schedule a meeting. They can also look into restructuring your plans, which basically means exploring how they can reduce overlap, close any gaps, or repurpose your existing plans so that you can get the best value and use out of your insurance policies. Because Haven stands by their framework very confidently, they offer a money-back guarantee on the excess premiums paid if you are oversold an insurance policy, up to 1 year from the start of the policy. If this sounds like something you'll be interested in, I'll link their website and contact information in the description below. We've come to the end of the video. Thank you for watching it all the way to the end. I might make a future video where I talk more in depth about each type of insurance plan. If you're interested in that kind of thing, please let me know in the comments below. If you have any questions or would like any clarifications, please ask them in the comments and I'll try to answer them or address them in the next video. Please subscribe and share this video if you found this helpful. I wish all of you the best of health and I hope you never have to use your insurance. I'll see you in my next video.